Back in high school, my friends and I would go out to abandoned buildings on the weekends at night. It was a creepy hobby, but nothing too supernatural or haunted ever happened. But one weekend, a few of us were feeling brave, and we decided to explore this old abandoned care home after the sun went down. It shut down about 5 years ago from a pretty nasty fire, and there was always rumors going around about how it was haunted and that there were still people, or maybe even ghosts, living in there. Usually, I don't take rumors like that too seriously, but even the older kids at my high school refused to go near the place, and it was always boarded up with broken windows and spray paint. I still don't know how we thought it was a good idea, but Saturday night came around and we drove over to the building to check it out. We found an opening on the side of the building. It was a broken window with a couple boards nailed up, but there was enough space for us to get inside. The moment we stepped into the building, it was like plunging into an abyss. I'm talking pitch black, the kind of darkness that swallows you whole. You couldn't even see your hand in front of your face. Thank the heavens we had our phone flashlights on us, or we would have been completely screwed. We turned on the lights and saw what was left of the building's lobby. The signs had grown mold and the walls were burnt black from the fire. Besides the sound of the wind blowing through the hole in the window, we couldn't hear a thing. As we crept deeper into the bowels of the building, the air grew thick and musty. Every creak of the floorboards, every gust of the wind, felt like a warning, a reminder that we were trespassing in a place that didn't want us there. We walked down the first hallway we saw, which seemed to be some sort of living quarters for the elderly that used to live there. At first, it seemed like it hadn't been touched in years since the fire happened, but as we made our way into the dining hall, something changed. We came across a few sleeping bags, a shopping cart, and a lot of food wrappers. The smell was hard to stomach. It was evidence of squatters. It was true that there were people living inside of this building. As we crept along, we saw their makeshift shelters scattered around the dining hall. My body was numb with anxiety, praying that we wouldn't run into any other signs of life. After making our way to the other side of the building, we came to the conclusion that these people were here a long time ago. There was something that must have driven them out from living here. Maybe it was that same dark, empty feeling that we felt when we first arrived. It also reeked of sewage and human waste, so that might have done it too. And then, just when we thought we had seen it all, we stumbled into a room straight out of a nightmare. The walls were covered in graffiti, but not the kind you'd find in your usual abandoned building. We didn't see a spray paint can in sight. No, this was something else entirely. A message spelled out in dried blood and excrement, like it was some demented ritual performed here long before we arrived. The stench hit me like a dump truck to the gut, a putrid stank that clawed its way into my nostrils and refused to let go. I'd never felt physical pain from a scent before, but the moment I walked into the room, I felt like I was going to pass out. I didn't have time to read what was scrawled on the walls before I looked off to the right and saw something on the floor. It was a body, laying on the ground, turned away towards the wall. My heart stopped. I turned around and nearly tripped running out of the room. I didn't even check to see if my friends were with me. I ran down the hall past the living quarters, praying that I wouldn't see or hear anything. I didn't have a thought going through my head. I just ran as fast as I could toward the exit, pointing my flashlight at the ground to see where I was going. It felt like I was running down that hallway for an eternity, but I leapt through the window and back onto the lawn outside of the building, and luckily my friends were right behind me. They couldn't stop laughing and talked about how fast I ditched them. Meanwhile, I was scared out of my mind. I asked them if they saw the body that I saw in that room, and they said they had no idea what I was talking about. But they saw the walls, and they smelled the disgusting aroma too. We all agreed that there was something seriously messed up happening there. We were driving back home, and we all vowed to never return to that cursed place again. And let me tell you, we kept that promise. 2 years later, the building was fully demolished and replaced with one of those old-fashioned diners where they serve you food on roller skates. I wanted to check it out. I really usually like that kind of thing, but deep down inside of me, something was telling me to never step foot near that place again. Luckily, that was the last I ever heard of it. I grew up in the Midwest, in a pretty quiet town, and there used to be this massive abandoned building just down the street from my childhood home. It was a child hospital at first, but then it was turned into refugee housing, and after that, a language school for Chinese students until 2007. Ever since then, it was just left to rot. It was surrounded by an intimidating fence wrapped in barbed wire, but it didn't seem like anyone was monitoring it. In about 2013, my friends and I broke in for the first time, and it became a regular spot for all of us to hang out. This place was like stepping into a time capsule. I found old diaries, certificates, and even untouched food left behind by students who disappeared seemingly in a hurry. There was a creepy aura to the whole place, but nothing too out of the ordinary happened, so we kept coming back. A few months had passed, until one night, in the middle of winter, when I decided to go by myself for the first time. I don't know why I decided to do this, but the abandoned buildings weirdly became kind of a normal hangout spot for us to go to, so it wasn't that weird for me. I went inside the building and knocked the snow off my boots. I could see my breath in the building, but it was oddly cozy in there. I walked around the corner and down the hall, where my friends and I normally hang out. We have a little setup there with some graffiti we sprayed on the wall and some blankets on the ground. We used to build little pyramids with the soda cans we would drink, and after a couple months it was getting pretty massive. I won't lie, it was pretty impressive. I sat down on the blanket and was just taking in the eerie atmosphere when I heard footsteps upstairs. I heard it clear as day. Someone else was in the building with me, and the footsteps didn't stop. I could hear them work their way down the hall toward the stairwell, and I felt my stomach sink into my butt. I felt like everything stopped and I couldn't think. My heart starts pounding like crazy, and I stand there for a second in complete silence. I wasn't taking a single breath. The footsteps got quieter and quieter, and I didn't move an inch. It felt like half an hour must have gone by, but I'm sure it was only minutes. I started slowly walking towards the exit, listening for any possible sound. I probably got about halfway to the exit when I heard a massive sound of metal crashing into the ground. It immediately clicked with me. Someone, or something, knocked over our soda cans. Not only that, but I hear footsteps running. I didn't even look. I just turned around and sprinted as hard as I could toward the exit. I dove through the window I usually carefully slide under to get outside onto the lawn. I had to climb and jump over the gate to get out, and I immediately made a beeline for my car. But here's when it gets even weirder. As I'm catching my breath by my car just down the road, a police car pulls up in front of the building. I've never seen cops come anywhere near this building. 2 officers jump out, and without discussing, they hop over the fence like it's nothing, and go around the side of the building to the entrance where I usually go in. I sat there and watched them disappear into the darkness, and after 5 minutes I got too scared and I drove home. I have no clue what they found there or why they were even there in the first place, but let me tell you, it sent shivers down my spine and down into my butt. I can't shake the feeling that I might have narrowly dodged more than just a trespassing violation that night. There was a quarter-mile railway tunnel that my brothers and I would explore, just a few blocks from where I grew up. There were no train tracks in this tunnel, but it was nestled between 2 live tunnels, which added a touch of danger to our adventure. As we would walk through it, you could hear trains passing left and right with the echo carrying through our tunnel. I may have been about 15 years old, but even now it gives me the creeps just thinking about how vapid and empty it felt. Now, trespassing was a part of the thrill, of course, and we knew that railway workers or transport police could catch us at any moment. But after going a couple of times, we weren't too afraid of coming across other people. But one year on Thanksgiving, we decided to take our younger cousin to show him where we hang out. He was a bit of a scaredy cat, so we thought it would be funny to creep him out. Right as the sun was going down, we walked with him to the tunnel. As we ventured deeper into the darkness, there was a nervous energy in the air. Very quickly, it got pitch black. We had a flashlight, but it only helped so much. We got to the end of the tunnel and showed him our spot, and he quickly urged us to head back home with him. We walked back towards the end and slowly started to see the glare from the street lights seeping in at the entrance. We were still about 100 feet from the mouth of the tunnel and could barely see around us, but my cousin stepped off to the side and walked over to this large, uncovered, square manhole. It was about 3 feet wide and 3 feet long. I don't remember any of the manholes in the tunnel ever being open, but I didn't think much about it. He stood still for a second. I expected him to say something, but right as I asked him, he turned around and his face was pale and frozen with fear. He screamed at the top of his lungs, yelling for us to run as we all bolted toward the light. You could hear his voice echo for like 30 seconds. It was pretty insane. We ran as fast as we could, struggling to keep up with him until we reached the mouth of the tunnel. We were gasping for air with our hands on our knees, trying to figure out what was going on. I asked him, "What's wrong? What did you see?" I was just trying to make sense of his panic. His face shook as he struggled to speak. "There was someone down there, looking up at me," he stammered. "He had long hair. He was just looking at me, nodding his head. I swear on my life. We have to go, now." We exchanged uneasy glances, trying to process what he had seen. Part of me wanted to walk back in and see what really happened, but he was crying and begged us to walk back home with him. My brothers were teasing him and said that he was probably just seeing things, but I've never seen him act like that. The next day, curiosity got the better of us, and my brothers and I walked back to the tunnel during the day to see what may have happened. It only took us a few minutes to get to where the manhole was, but when we arrived, something confusing happened. The manhole cover was back on the hole. Not only that, but it was seemingly welded to the ground. My older brother tried to pick it up, but we had no luck. I will never know what my cousin actually saw that day. Maybe it was just a worker servicing the tunnels at night or something, but there's a small part of me that actually believes he saw something he wasn't supposed to see that night. Or should I say someone?